For example, you see this iPhone, this is my business phone. I use it as an asset in that I use it to create content, and that content ends up producing income. Another person can buy the same iPhone and only use it for personal use. For that person, it's a liability. For that person, it's personal. It's not business related. They're not using it in a very interesting live training we're going to go through today. Mainly for those of you that are interested in funding, opening multiple cards, and just better understanding credit. We're going to go through that today. And yeah, if only someone showed me this sooner, I would have saved a lot of time doing all this very important research. But again, I'm gonna like do a lot for you guys. And what I want to essentially do, the purpose of this live training is to be so clear that you will not need to ask me for support on your credit building journey. So again, I want to give you all the strategy, give you all the game, give you all the tips and tricks so that after this live training, you know exactly what card to go for next, what card to not go for, and how to just move forward on your journey towards whether it's 100k or 200k in credit. So we're looking at better applying vertically. It will make more sense when I go into it, but that's the title of this live training. And we're going to be looking at the advanced strategy that allows you to get multiple credit accounts within a night. It can even also be loans as well. It's not only credit cards, but we're just going to focus on credit cards so that it's not too complicated. And then any questions that anyone has, always feel free to drop it in the chat, and we'll go through it, make sure everyone's clear, and yeah, provide as much value as possible. So let me just first of all share how I discovered this strategy that literally changed my life. I always share that before I knew anything about credit, I used to work in an accounting firm. And through my schooling years, college, university, I did accounting. I did accounting and finance, a 4-year degree. And there was nothing mentioned ever about personal credit. Even personal finances was rarely ever mentioned. But definitely nothing about personal credit card, nothing about Experian ever. So when I discovered this for the first time, it was all new to me. It was all alien. I didn't know what anything meant. So I always share that, it took me a very long time to realize within my job that I didn't learn about, personal finances. How do I become rich? How do I become wealthy? What does it take? What does it look like? And when I quit my job in 2022, I then did a lot of research on, money. I was trying to figure out, why is this money thing so hard? So when I was working in my accounting firm, I had to give in a 3-month notice. So that's like 90 days, which was a very long time at the time. And within that 3 months, I binged watched a lot of content about business and finances because I was trying to figure out why this money thing is so difficult. And when I say binge, I literally mean like every single day in the morning, I would watch a YouTube video before going to the office. And then when I'd come back home from the office, I'd binge watch another 2, 3, 4 hours of just like learning more about this money thing. Because again, even though I did accounting and finance, a lot of it was like corporate finance. So how to make the big companies richer, how to help them avoid taxes. It wasn't about, personal wealth and how to make us, richer in our community. So one thing that I wanted to do, which I thought would be easy, was I want to buy a house when I'm a certain age. I think when I was 27, I thought, let me just buy a house, and it's going to be simple. I even wanted to do it by using cash. Again, I didn't know anything about credit, so I didn't really understand this whole borrowing thing. And I thought to myself, I wanted to be debt free, so like this idea of borrowing was just like, nah, I want to be able to buy a house in 9 Elms and use cash. When I now check the prices for how much houses cost in 9 Elms compared to how much I was earning, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so far off from reality. Like, how was I so clueless to not know, first of all, that there's this very important thing called, finance, debt, credit. But then two, that how much I was earning was just like so far apart from the 1, 2, 3 million pound houses that were being built in 9 Elms. So I thought to myself, okay, cool. If I did this whole degree, I've gone through this route, and I didn't even know, I wasn't taught about personal finances, about personal wealth, then that means that most people in the country have no idea what they're doing with money. So on my, binge watch of all this content about money, credit, finances, I came across this thing called credit over in America. guys talking about opening Amex cards, multiple cards, inquiries, all this like amazing. I was like, this sounds absolutely amazing. I wonder what works in the UK. And people that spoke about credit talked about using credit to actually make money, using the bank's money as leverage so that it's easier and quicker for us to, make more money and actually become rich. So I thought to myself, this sounds very, very interesting. I've never heard about it before. Didn't even know what Experian or Equifax was or who they were. And of course, I then did a lot of research as to figuring out what actually works in the UK. So again, I learned a lot of things in America watching YouTube videos. And I thought to myself, okay, cool, what works in the UK? And one of the things that I did, which took me a very long time, took me over 2 years, was I tried to look into where every single UK bank does a hard credit check when it comes to going for their personal credit cards. It took me over, it was a very, very, very long research study that I did. So what I mean is literally, if you go for like a Lloyd's credit card, where do they do a hard search? If you go for a HSB credit card, where do they do a hard search? Thankfully, from 2022 when I quit up until like 2024, 2025, I was able to complete this list, which is now available within our school community, of a whole list showing you where every single bank in the UK does a hard search. And for you guys today who are here, I'm going to share with you live this list. So literally, what is good is that before you go for a credit card, you will now have knowledge as to where there's going to be a hard credit check so that you can better go for multiple cards. Again, it will make more sense when I go into it. But this took me a very long time to, figure out and master. So literally, we're talking about Barclay card. Who else is there? NatWest, TSB. There's loads of banks. Like we've got the whole UK high street banks anyway. That high street banks covered. So it will make more sense. But this strategy is what caused me to do this research and to, figure all these things out. So it wasn't just me going to open all these cards, though I do have a lot of cards. It was me creating a community and helping other people open cards to then complete the research. So this list that I will show you at the end of the call is going to be immensely valuable. And how much you pay to join this live training is nowhere near the value of this, full list that I will end up sharing with you once we've gone through the details and the mechanics of how applying vertically works. So just a short story as to how I discovered it. And again, literally, if I didn't know about this, I would have otherwise just stumbled upon, maybe getting 2 cards, 3 cards here and there. But by doing this, I've been able to get multiple cards quickly, get all this funding, and then use the funding to make money. So before I go into the details of this strategy, I want to talk about 2 important frameworks when it comes to this whole idea of becoming a ruler over money versus being ruled by money. Now, it's very easy. It's almost by default that if you don't learn about money, it's super easy to be ruled by money. And here's 2 frameworks that I've created. Oh, this is just me showing my journey of literally going from poor credit. So this is a negative market coming off. Again, before I knew about Experian and Equifax, I had poor credit. I got a negative market off by mistake, opened multiple cards, got over 100K. And ever since, as you can see, all these cards, make sure that they're covered. These are like proof of all the cards that, has easily been opened because, I mastered the basics of having good credit. So again, I only show you this just to help you guys believe and know that if I can do it, then you can do it. And because I've done it and I know exactly how these things work, it doesn't have to take you as long as it took me. My first credit card, I opened it in 2017. It was this Sainsbury's Bank credit card. I got £1,200 as a credit limit. I didn't know where they hard checked. I didn't know anything about this, applying vertically. I just went for it because they were offering Nectar points. I didn't even know about Amex at the time. I knew nothing. From 2017, it's only until, again, 2022 when I quit my job that I then took seriously this whole thing of, opening more cards. And then literally ever since, you see a lot more cards compared to what I had before, with this negative marker as well, which is now being removed, which is amazing. So yeah, all that you see, a lot of it has happened between 2022 and 2025. And when I really focus is when I was able to like literally open more cards. So people that I now coach now and show them this strategy, they're able to open multiple cards, get, loads of credit, ideally a lot of points as well, and then use this to actually benefit them financially. So again, I said I was going to talk about 2 frameworks quickly. One showing you how easy it is to become ruled by money, and then the importance of trying to focus on becoming a ruler over money. And again, I wish if someone showed me this sooner when I was younger, I'd be in a totally different place. So here are just 5 key components in this whole thing of becoming a ruler over money. And when I say, I almost want to describe it as literally you having your foot on top of money as opposed to having money have its foot over you. Most people have it the wrong way around, and that's usually because we're not taught about money. So one thing to highlight in this framework is the fact that we all have limited time, energy, attention, and focus. And what the ideal would be to follow a framework that looks something like this, where you use your limited resources to make money, and you use this earned money to acquire assets. That's number 3. But ideally, income producing assets. So, for example, when I say income producing assets, things that you can buy. So, usually they're going to be items that last over a year that actually end up bringing you a financial return. So, for example, a mic like this, I would consider is an asset because I paid for it with the intent of it bringing me a financial return. And because I use it, to create content, to host live trainings, this actually makes me money. The cameras that I'm using is an asset as well. And it's an income producing asset because it actually ends up bringing me additional cash flow. Now, the ideal is that this additional cash flow is what is used for your personal expenses. If you have a framework that looks something like this, you are better able to rule over money. Now, unfortunately, most people do not have this framework and don't follow or believe or even know what I'm talking about. And again, I always say, if someone showed me this sooner, literally, I'd be in a totally different place. What you don't want is this framework that should I jump to it now? Because there's one more thing. Yeah, I'll come back to this one. Is this framework of you spend your time to make money, and then the money you earn goes towards personal expenses. This is not ideal because you literally put yourself in a rat race where you're consistently using limited resources to make some money and you're just giving it away. And you're not investing in your future financially in a way that can now help you to buy back your time. And that's the end goal. And what's even worse is that, yeah, of course you've got bills, so you should pay for them and make money to pay for them. But if you also then just buy liabilities, then you just make it so much harder for yourself. And a liability can be anything in that literally this mic is either an asset or a liability. And the difference is whether it's actually going to end up producing cash flow or income. And it's similar with like an iPhone or a camera, you name it. So if, for example, you see this iPhone, this is my business phone, I use it as an asset in that I use it to create content and that content ends up producing income. Another person can buy the same iPhone and only use it for personal use. For that person, it's a liability. For that person, it's personal. It's not business related. They're not using it in a way that is bringing them a financial return. So what we don't want ideally is to be stuck in this trap of using limited time, energy, attention, and focus to make some money and for it to go towards things that don't bring us a financial return. Again, if someone showed me this sooner, everything would have been different. But I didn't learn about this in school or in uni or in college. So back to the earlier framework of showing you a better way to become a ruler over money. One thing that wasn't here before is this idea of using borrowed money, so credit. Now, assets, income producing assets, are what you want to work alongside you so that you're not the only thing making money. Because, for example, you can work 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. Some people work 12 hours a day, 15 hours a day to the extreme. But then there's a cap on how much you can make if all that you make is tied to your energy and time and attention and focus. Whereas if you now had assets that work alongside you, then it's easier for you to make more money and then ideally use this money to buy back your time. And let me give you a clear example. So some of you are even into property as well, so this will make a lot of sense to you. There's people that will buy a property, rent out the property, and end up getting monthly cash flow from this property. They will still work, they're still earning money, but rather than them being the only thing that makes money, their property and themselves are making money together so that they then have more than enough money to, first of all, pay for their personal expenses, but then ideally to then spend some money to buy back your time. Because it's with time that you can then think about other ways to perfect this framework and to sharpen this framework and to make better decisions. Whereas if a lot of your limited resources goes towards making money and then that money goes towards personal expenses and liabilities, it's a dead end. Because what you have to do to make more money, to beat inflation, to combat against taxes, is give away more of your time. And time is limited. No one knows how long they have. Energy is limited. You wake up with a lot of energy, and then as the day goes on, it usually tends to go down, after a number of hours. With attention, that's limited as well. And with focus, that is also limited. So what we don't want to do is be stuck in this framework, this way of living life where you just work, make money, buy personal expenses. It's just not good. So what credit does, borrowed money, helps you to do, why this whole thing of applying for a lot of cards is useful, is because borrowed money can help you to more quickly acquire assets. So for those of you that have a property, for those of you that have a business, even if you've got a mortgage, you would know that for most people, without borrowing money, getting a house is just not possible. But what credit does is it almost bridges the gap between the money you're making and the thing you want to buy. So credit is very important because it helps you to more quickly acquire assets. But without knowledge, you could potentially just buy a liability and not be using it to actually make you money. So again, this idea of applying vertically, getting multiple cards, getting funding is very useful because it stops you from being the only thing that's making money to buy assets. You can couple your money plus borrowed money to buy assets, get additional cash flow, cover your personal expenses, and then use money to buy back your time so that you can then perfect this framework and rinse and repeat the cycle. And the more you can safely and responsibly borrow and use to buy assets, that can be a business, it can be property, it can be equipment like gadgets that you're using to make money. Obviously, nowadays, content makes a lot of money nowadays, which is crazy. Things have changed. As long as you are continually investing in assets, then you are in a good place. If all your money is going towards personal expenses, if you don't have a business, if you're not buying property to, let out, then it's going to be very difficult. Inflation is going to eat you up. Taxes is going to eat you up as well. And that's not what we want. So hopefully this gives you an idea as to a better understanding as to why this credit thing is important. And even if you can access an extra 20K, 30K through what I show you, and you don't need to use it immediately, just having the access is better than trying to start in 2027. Because when you then get an idea for the assets you can buy, when you then get an idea as to what business you can start, at least you've got the money ready for you as opposed to you now starting from scratch and taking maybe, a whole year to access, £30,000. So hopefully that was very useful. Again, any questions about this, let me know and we can go through at the end. So the only way to really change your position, should I say, from becoming or from being ruled by money to now becoming a ruler over money is literally by changing how you view money and what you believe about it. So I like the way Myron Golden explains, the purpose of money, how rich people see it. Ideally, you want to see money as a thing that works for you. You want your earned money to have babies, and those babies to continually reproduce itself. So you want to have money babies that are out there working for you and multiplying itself. Because again, literally on inflation alone, if you make the same amount of money every single year, you will find that your discretionary income, how much you have left, will always decrease. When tax rules change and the government does what it does and HMRC do what they do, you will find that you don't have a lot of extra money to actually enjoy your life. So this thing of trying to always figure out how you can make more, but not make more by giving away all your time, make more by acquiring assets that end up giving you more money is very, very, very important. Again, if someone showed me this when I was younger, I'd be in a different place. But hopefully showing you this now can help you see that one, You need to focus on income producing assets. And two, you need to know that your time, energy, and attention are limited resources. So please don't waste it and use it wisely. So again, this idea of applying for credit accounts vertically is very important, because if you can also use the bank's money to buy assets, then you can, get more additional cash flow and not be the only thing that's making money. And you guys, hopefully, everyone has seen this framework of me going through a 5-step framework showing you how to go from poor credit to over 100K. And today we're focusing on step 4, how to better apply for credit accounts by going vertically. And again, I'll go into it in more detail. But just to summarize this, just in case anyone has never seen me talk about step 1, 2, 3, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. When it comes to this 5-step framework, from going from zero knowledge, poor credit to over 100K, here is the basics of what's important. You first of all need to know that we all have 3 different credit reports. They're all independent and they don't communicate with each other. What that means is you can have a excellent Experian credit report and a terrible TransUnion report. Experian will not contact TransUnion on your behalf to correct errors or typos or negative markers. We are responsible for our own credit report. So we have to double check every single page and audit it to make sure that there's no errors and that it's spotless. That's very important. So again, we all have 3 different credit reports. They're not related. You have to double check them for yourself, make sure that there's no errors. Whenever you apply for a new credit card or a loan, you don't have to check every single time, but at least check every 3-6 months to make sure that whatever has been inputted as your name, your date of birth, your address, make sure that it's consistent every single time. That's very important. So this is always step 1, I always say. Step 1 in the 5-step framework. The next thing that's very important is if you find a negative marker, you ideally want to remove it. Whether it's a late payment, a default, or a CCJ, you can actually use AI to more easily remove negative markers. And we've got loads of content, we've got books, we've got loads of things showing you how to remove negative markers using AI. And this is so important because when it comes to going for credit, when it comes to applying vertically, what's assessed is your credit report, not your Experian credit score, your Equifax credit score. What's assessed is your credit report. You want a credit report that reflects you well, one that shows that you are trustworthy, one that shows that you are reliable. If you have a typo in your credit report, this can then prove to a bank or lender, their system, that they can't trust you. They want to see consistent information across every single credit account. If you've got a default in your credit report, this needs to be removed ASAP, because a default represents to a bank or lender who doesn't know you, doesn't care about you, that you are not trustworthy. So if you now, for example, went to go for an Amex card and you've got 5 defaults, the odds of you getting approved are super slim. So knowing how to remove negative markers using AI, very important. And that's step 2. Step 3 then is mastering the key credit factors. And what's funny is that there's 4 key credit factors to consider. There's obviously more, but here's the 4 very important ones, almost the top 4 key credit factors. Number 1 is no informational errors, as I always say, so no typos, no issues. Number 2 is having no late payments, defaults, or CCJs. Number 3 is then having low utilization on your credit cards. This shows a bank or lender that you are not over reliant on credit. Then when you now go for a new credit card or a new loan, you're more likely to be approved. If you've got a high utilization, then that doesn't look good. When I say utilization, I'm referring to usage. So you want to report every month low usage on your personal credit cards. And then the 4th key factor is having a low debt to income ratio. This is usually ignored or not known about. But if your debt to income ratio is high, then it shows a bank or lender that you are very reliant on debt, and that's not ideal. A bank or lender would then not see you as profitable, and they may reject you if you go for their card. And again, we're going to go through this into more detail, but what you should then see from these factors is that you want to actually get credit and use a little bit. You don't want to overuse it. So with your utilization, which compares your reported balance to your credit limit, ideally stay around 25% and keep it lower. So 25% and lower is fine. Your debt to income ratio, between 1% and 60%, and you'll be fine. Your debt to income ratio compares your total debt to your total annual income or salary, personal income. So if your total debt is £10,000 and your total personal income is £20,000, that's a 50% debt to income ratio, and that's good. So monitoring this and keeping it low will boost and improve your credit worthiness. And that's important when you're going to apply for these cards or these loans and ideally use this funding to actually make money. So those are the 3 steps summarized. And step 4 is what we'll focus on today. Better going for credit accounts by applying vertically. When I say that, I mean we're going to look at how you can minimize hard searches, maximize each report you have, and get as much funding as possible. So it is strategic, it is technical, but once I break it down, hopefully it makes a lot of sense. And I always say what I share and teach are these 5 steps. It's very simple. I've even called it steps to make it very easy and digestible. So whoever comes to me, the first thing I always do is check their credit reports, check every single page. If there's any negative marker, show them how to remove it. Show them how to actually master the key credit factors. Show them the cards that they can then open by better applying vertically. And then show them how to go for multiple credit limit increases and go for it over and over and over again so that they can actually hit 100K, 200K, and keep going. So that's the framework. And for this member that I walked through this process, he was then able to open a number of cards and get high limits. So this is a Capital on Tap card. He got 4K. A message saying 20K in just a few days, which is absolutely crazy. Same person. He then went for a Virgin Money credit card. Got 5.6. His limit went up to 62K. So, we were able to then get 25K in 1 week. And then I was like, 2024 is going to be crazy. And then a few days later, his Amex business card showed 50K as spending power. So 62K plus 50K is over 100K. And again, all we're doing is going through this 5-step framework of ensuring step 1 to 3 is sorted. Then after that, we can have fun and go for cards, get high limits, and then ideally use this credit to make money. So again, this is just one example. I've got loads of examples, but this is one example. And this is way back in 2024. So again, I've been doing this for a while. And I'm going to try to break it down because when we were doing this, me and Master P, I was helping him along the way, answering these questions. I want to make this live training so clear that you won't need to ask me questions every single time. Of course, you may still need to, but to literally give you every single detail, all the hacks, all the steps to make sure that you can literally then open and get 25K in a week or 50K from Amex, wherever it is. So there's 2 key things I want to go into a bit more detail about that's going to be very important to this concept of better applying vertically. And that's understanding what a credit report is and understanding what a hard credit search is. These 2 things are very important. So a credit report is your financial diary. It has information on you based on items that relate to credit. So the things that are not included in your credit report, and there's things that are. Most people have no idea how valuable their credit reports are. But once you understand what I'm going to show you today, you will see why a credit report is very and extremely valuable. So again, as I mentioned before, we have 3 different credit reports, one with Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Each one is very valuable. But again, until you're taught about it, you don't see the value in your Experian report or your Equifax report or your TransUnion report. But literally, a good report can help you access money that you can then use to make money. But again, you have to understand exactly how these things work. So a credit report, again, is a financial diary that has history on your behavior in relation to credit. So any credit card you have, usually there's going to be a report of whether you've actually repaid the bank or lender or missed payments. There'll be information on whether you have a CCJ or not. There'll be information on whether you are financially tied to someone else or not. Having a credit report in good order is very valuable. Very, 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 very valuable. And in this thing of going for credit cards, even loans potentially, and applying vertically, the key is ensuring that your credit report is in good order. Now, one common misconception, and I see it so many times. People talk about credit scores, Equifax credit score, Experian credit score. If you ever see me mention a credit score on Telegram, I only do it to get people excited about the number of 999 or 900 or whatever. But a credit score from Experian or Equifax or TransUnion is not important when it comes to applying for a card. When you apply for, let's say, a Barclay card or a Virgin Money card, whoever checks your credit report, they're not checking your Experian score. They're checking your Experian credit report. What that then means literally is that you can have an excellent credit score and a CFAS marker. With that CFAS marker, in most cases, you're not going anywhere. Banks and lenders will automatically reject you because of that CFAS marker. So what you want is a clean report, which is why it's important to follow step 1 of auditing every single page on your credit reports. With a good credit report, with a clean credit report, it makes it easier to go for multiple cards. So hopefully that was clear and made sense. A credit report is king. Your credit scores are then, they're useful, but they're nowhere near as important as a credit report. So it is useful to have a 900 score or an 800 score, whether it's with Equifax or Experian or 700 with TransUnion. But that's not the first thing to focus on. The most important thing is to follow step 1, check your credit reports, make sure that there's no typos, make sure that a bank lender never reports an error or an issue, and then to start and focus on your credit report being in good order. Then focus on your credit score. Another thing that's very important when it comes to applying vertically and going for multiple cards, multiple loans, is knowing what a hard credit check is. Now, there's a hard credit check and then there's a soft credit check. Hard credit checks are important. Soft credit checks are not important when it comes to applying for credit accounts. They're useful to you, but they're not useful when it comes to going for an Amex card or a Barclay card, whatever it is. So a hard credit check takes place when a bank or lender does a full review of your credit report. So usually when you actually apply for a credit card or a current account or a phone contract or a loan or a mortgage, banks or lenders may choose to do a hard credit check, and most of them actually do for the products I just mentioned. Again, even current accounts can require a hard credit check. So when you better understand how a hard credit check or what it is, you then ideally see the value of a hard credit check, because what you don't want on your credit report is too many hard credit checks within a short space of time. Again, whenever you apply for credit, a bank or lender is judging you based on your credit report. So even if you're the most trustworthy person, even if every friend and family member can vouch for you as you've always borrowed and repaid, you've never had a late payment. If your report says you have late payments, but it's an error, it's an issue, it's actually not correct, the bank or lender judges you based on what they see on your report. If you have 4 hard credit checks on your credit report, let's say it's on your Experian credit report, what that shows a bank or lender who then hard checks your Experian report is that you are desperate for credit and borrowing to you may be very risky. Again, we have 3 different credit reports. When a hard check is done, whenever you apply for a credit account, whether it's a current account, a loan, a credit card, you don't get hard checks on every single credit report every single time. What do I mean? So for example, there are some cards you can go for that only do 1 hard check on 1 credit report. So for example, and this will go into the list that I show at the end of the live call, if you go for, let me give you an example of a card. Let's say if you go for a NatWest credit card, they usually only hard check your Experian credit report. They don't hard check Equifax, and they don't usually hard check TransUnion. I'm using the word usually intentionally, and I'll explain that later. But what's important to know is that with this strategy, what we're trying to do is maximize our hard searches, our hard credit checks, and use it to open more cards, to get more loans, and then use this money, this credit, the bank's money, to actually make money. There's no point getting 20 credit cards to then use it for personal expenses or to then use it for liabilities. No, you want to ideally use these things, use this money to actually buy income producing assets, make more money, pay off the debt, rinse and repeat the cycle. It will help you more quickly acquire assets. as opposed to just using your own hard-earned income. So a hard check is when a full check is done on your credit report. A soft check is when a soft search is done. So it means that only the basic information is being viewed by the bank or lender of the company that does a soft check. So for example, they're gonna maybe see your name, your date of birth, your address, just basic information, but they can't see your full credit report. With a soft check, let's say for example you do an eligibility check with Amex and see what kind of score you can get. With a soft check, Amex will not see how many hard checks you have had recently, because with hard checks, they are almost hidden within your credit report. So it's not easily accessible information. It's not public information, the number of hard searches. A bank lender has to do a hard search to see all the hard searches that has been done within the last 12 months in most cases. So that's the difference between a hard search and a soft search. A hard search leaves a footprint on your credit report and a soft search doesn't. So even if you have 1 million soft searches, when you now apply for a credit card with Virgin Money or Barclay card, they don't see those soft searches. They only see the hard searches if they do a hard search on a particular credit report. And again, the strategy will make more sense once we go into the detail of how this, applying vertically method actually works. But understanding a hard search is very important in this strategy. Again, not all banks will lender check every single report. And unless a bank does a hard search, they can't see the previous hard searches that have been done on your Experian report, for example, or your Equifax report, for example, or your TransUnion report. That is very important. So these two things are very important to understand and to have ingrained in your understanding of how credit actually works. So the strategy, applying vertically, how it works, where people go wrong. So what I'm talking about, you will not find this anyway. I've not heard anyone in the UK that talks about this. Again, I learned this method, this strategy from America. And the reason why a lot of these strategies and techniques and tricks are hidden and not shared is because essentially what is desired, first of all, is that we don't understand how money really works, so that we're actually ruled by money as opposed to being rulers over money. But then secondly, the argument that people have, I think I've shared it in a previous live call, is that if you inform people how credit really works, then there's going to be a lot of toxic debt. I hear it, but it also then affects those of us who are trying to fix our credit, actually get a mortgage, and then use credit for for business, for example. So what I'm showing you is is scarce information. If you literally go on Google and type in applying vertically in the UK, if you're looking for the list of what bank checks where, you can't find this information. It's intentionally hidden. As I always say, credit is a dark industry. So what I'm sharing with you guys today is super valuable secret sauce. So most people get this wrong. When I say get this wrong, they don't value their hard searches or their hard checks because they're not even aware. They have no idea what a hard search is. Most people just blindly apply for a card and don't even think to ask where are they going to do a hard check. So literally you could have, let's say you've got an excellent Experian report, an excellent TransUnion report, but issues with your Equifax report. If you go for a card that hard checks Equifax only and you get rejected, the reason why is because your Equifax report wasn't in good order and they didn't hard check the other two where they would have seen, good information. So with this strategy, once you understand that, you will know that you never again want to blindly apply for a credit product or a credit account. So this even includes current accounts. So for some of you that are interested in this whole thing of bank switching and opening a lot of current accounts, once you get how this really works, you may reconsider whether you want to keep doing this bank switching. So bank switching, yes, it gives you money in that you can literally switch banks and make money. But if you're getting hard searches on the wrong report over and over and over again, you're missing out on the funding you can then get to ideally make money. So this is a mistake that most people make, and they don't know it because they're not aware of how these things work. If you randomly apply, what usually happens is that you just end up getting a lot of searches on your Experian report. Now, between the three, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, the most used credit reference agency send us the report that they hard check, whether it's a bank or lender, Experian is the most popular. Whether it's a credit card, a current account, a loan, or a mortgage, Experian is the most popular. What that therefore then means is that in terms of the value of that Experian report, it is the most valuable between the three. But it doesn't mean that you only monitor Experian. If you want the most funding, you monitor all three and you maximize on the power of all three reports. But just to make it clear that Experian is the most sought after credit reference agency. And most people just randomly apply and get a lot of Experian hard searches and then end up blocking themselves on getting, funding. Some banks and lenders check 2 credit reports. Even that requires some strategy. And again, I'll go into that at the end of the call when I go into like some of the live demos and strategies as to how to go for different cards. And literally, if you follow this strategy, this principle, what I'm going to share with you, you could potentially get over £50,000 in credit compared to like getting maybe 10K or 6K and then being stuck because you've got too many hard searches on one report and you're not sure what's going on. So this is where most people go wrong. They don't understand how this works. They get a hard search in the wrong place and then they're stuck because they can't, go for another card. This is a game changer in that you can virtually then hide hard searches and keep going for cards. So the strategy is that rather than having hard searches in a random place where you don't know, you want to know beforehand, before you apply, where does Amex do a hard search? Where does Virgin Money do a hard search? Where does TSB do a hard search? Once you know this beforehand, everything changes. So then you ideally know that what you want to do to get maximum funding, to get 10K on each report, to get 20K on each report, is to go for a card that checks 1 report, maybe even 2, but know beforehand where it will be done. So that rather than getting maybe 2 cards, you can then get 4 cards all in one night. And again, I'll go into more detail as to how it literally works in as much and plain English as possible. So what you do by knowing beforehand that you maximize your hard searches. Again, hard searches are very valuable because if you stack hard searches and then go for another card, rejection is very easy. But if you spread hard searches, you can virtually hide hard searches and keep getting cards and create your own collage, as you've been seeing on my Telegram channel where I'm literally showing you guys unbelievable results and receipts. So the 4-step framework, I always teach in frameworks, the 4-step framework for going for multiple accounts goes as follows. Step 1 is understanding which lender checks which report. Let me even talk about this a little bit as well. So a lot of people will say that the reason why you shouldn't go for a lot of cards, credit cards, in a short space of time is because you don't want too many hard searches. That's a little true, but the better way of understanding it is that you don't want too many hard searches on one report and then to go for another card that checks the same report. So you can literally have 5 hard searches on Experian and then go for a card that only checks Equifax and they would not see those Experian hard searches because they didn't hard check your Experian report. And that's a better way to understand how hard searches actually works. The reason why this is hidden information is because what is not desired is that everyone has knowledge as to where a bank or lender can check so that people cannot then open, 5 cards, 6 cards within a month or 2 or 3 months. So what I'm showing you again, guys, is super secret, saucy information. Step 1 is this, understanding where lenders check their credit reports. Which one do they hard check? Which one do they not? Step 2 is to then study each credit reference agency. So studying Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. This is very important. And then step 3 is actually having a plan before you execute. And then step 4 is doing your final checks. Again, we'll go through this one by one right now. So again, different lenders check different reports. And here's an example of some of them.